Dale, pero sin parar, ¿eh?
No, que no me la puedo pegar.
Imagine a wall of flame, moving faster than a car on a highway, punching through pine forest so violently it manufactures its own lightning. And that is not a metaphor. That is what just happened 100 kilometers north of Madrid. And it is still not fully over, because this is the story of the La Mierla fire, and it just became Spain's second largest wildfire of the entire century.
More than 250,000 people have fled their homes as wildfires rage across Spain and France.
It started small on July 16th, deep in Guadalajara province, near the Sierra Norte Natural Park, and investigators now believe the ignition source was something almost mundane: agricultural machinery working a dry field. But within 48 hours, small was not a word anyone was using anymore, because the fire exploded across bone-dry terrain that had been baking under back-to-back European heat waves, and Spain's national weather agency, AEMET, had already flagged fire danger as very high or extreme across almost the entire mainland. And this blaze proved them right in the worst possible way.
Tira. Aquí está prendiendo bien.
Because by the time firefighters finally stabilized the front this week, La Mierla had consumed more than 35,000 hectares, which is roughly the size of 65,000 football pitches, reduced to ash in about a week. Here is the part that should terrify you. This is now the largest wildfire ever recorded in the Castilla-La Mancha region's history. Not this decade, not this century, ever. And Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez did not just comment on it from Madrid. He flew directly into the burn zone to Tamashon, standing in the ash to meet emergency crews face to face.
Va a entrar dentro del pueblo, ¿vale? Por ahora.
While 34 rural communities were forced out of their homes, and as of this week, 29 of them are still under evacuation orders, with 14 more remaining under confinement, meaning residents are locked indoors, sealed away from air thick with carbon particulate and superheated ash. The response was massive. Spain activated Plan Infocam, its highest-tier emergency wildfire protocol, pulling in the UME, the Military Emergency Unit, Spain's dedicated disaster response branch of the armed forces, bringing armored bulldozers, all-terrain fire engines, and mobile command centers to coordinate operations across a battlefield of smoke and flame.
Sal de ahí, sal de ahí, sal de ahí, sal de ahí. Sal de ahí.
No.
While above them, Canadair CL-415 water bombers and heavy-lift helicopters ran continuous drops through zero-visibility smoke columns, dumping water and retardant onto ravines too steep and too hot for any ground crew to survive. And on the ground, ordinary farmers refused to sit this one out, driving their own tractors straight toward the fire line.
Igual por aquí no era por donde había que venir, ¿eh? Hostias, está soplando de cojones. Mucho, mucho.
Dale, pero sin parar, ¿eh?
No, que me la puedo pegar.
Dropping heavy plows to rip bare earth fire breaks, starving the flames of fuel before they could reach another town. But here is what almost nobody is talking about. This is not an isolated disaster. It is a pattern, because just weeks before La Mierla ignited, a separate wildfire in Almeria, in southern Spain, killed 13 people, including foreign nationals, making it one of the deadliest fires in the country's modern history. And add it all up, Spain has now burned through roughly 125,000 hectares in 2026 alone.
Parar, ¿eh?
No, que me la puedo pegar.
Hostias, tú.
While Europe as a whole has already burned more land this year than its 20-year average, with the fire season nowhere near finished. Climate scientists studying the Mediterranean basin say, this is not bad luck. It is a shift, because heat waves that used to hit once every few decades are becoming annual events, and fire seasons that used to end in September are now bleeding into spring and stretching past autumn. And there is a hidden aftermath most people never think about, because when soil burns at these extreme temperatures, organic compounds break down into a waxy, water-repellent crust just beneath the surface. So rain that should soak in and heal the land instead runs straight off it, triggering mudslides and flash floods for years after the flames are gone. And wildlife biologists across Guadalajara are already documenting devastating losses among roe deer, wild boar, and ground-nesting birds that simply had nowhere to run. Beyond the human toll, the economic damage is staggering too, with farming cooperatives facing years of lost income while scorched soil recovers, and municipalities staring down massive bills to rebuild roads, water systems, and power grids melted by the heat.
Les pompiers t'auraient dû de partir, hein.
So, what happens next? Authorities are cautiously optimistic that La Mierla is stabilizing, but AEMET is warning that Spain and neighboring France remain at high risk for new fires in the coming days, meaning this story is very likely not finished, and the real question is not whether the next mega fire happens, it is when, and whether the world is paying attention before it does. So, if this kind of climate reporting matters to you, subscribe, because this is only going to become a bigger story, not a smaller one.